Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode. This week, my guest is Nikki, and she runs the Etsy shop, Stitch and Stuffed.
Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, Nikki, and welcome to the podcast.
Hi, it's great to be here.
Thank you for being my guest.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So I'm glad to have you on because I like to talk to newer sellers because I know a lot of people are starting from scratch, and I like to get a perspective on just what that process is like, because somebody who is listening to this podcast might be thinking about it. And I know people write in and say they want to start an Etsy shop, and they're thinking about it and they're kind of stuck. So I like to have people who are starting up and still in the learning process, because that will help someone who's on the fence or who knows they want to but hasn't yet done it get a very realistic view. So I'm really happy that you're here to share more about your experience on Etsy.
Yeah, and I think that that's awesome because there's a lot of people starting out, and since I'm still starting out, there's still a lot to learn, but I think I've learned a lot in this past year.
Yes, and I think your first year is where you do the most learning, because everything is new and you're figuring everything out. So we'll get into all that. But before we start, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, all right. So, my shop is called Stitch and Stuffed, and I make plush toys for children. And there's a lot of them that are made off of children's drawings that their parents send in. And that's a lot of fun because it makes the kids' day.
Yeah.
And it's always something different and unique.
Yeah. Do you have any, because you've seen kids' drawings, obviously, and
Mhm.
some of them have just these wild imaginations. Do you have any concerns that you might receive a drawing one day and just be like, there's no way I can replicate that?
Every once in a while, I have that thought, but normally I get a message beforehand from the parent or anyone who has the drawing asking if it's something that I can do. And
Okay.
normally I'll take a look at it. And right now, I've never really been pushed beyond my limits for creating, but I imagine someday it will happen.
Yeah, I can only imagine. But I mean, being a creative, my first thought when I read how you come up, well, not come up, but the market that you serve, I thought, oh my goodness, I see things that young kids draw, and some of them I'm just like, what dream did you have? And, what did you eat the night before that caused you to dream up this creature? And so I'm impressed that you take on the challenge of creating these I don't even know what to call them. What do you call them?
I mean, a lot of the parents call them their children's characters, so I guess I'm
Okay.
kind of going with that.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, some of them there's not really a name for them, but I just kind of go with most of them have faces, so I kind of call them people.
hmm
But sometimes I'm not really sure. But I love how creative children are because sometimes our creativity kind of dwindles as we get older. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I love how creative they are.
So how would you describe yourself? Do you consider yourself a crafter, a visionary, or maker? What would you say you are?
I actually, even on my business cards, it says plushy artist.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because I think that being able to take something and make it from nothing basically is an
Mhm.
art form.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, what is a plushie?
It is basically a stuffed animal. I think it's a shortened version of the word plush toy.
Okay. And plush comes from the fabric that you use to make it, right? You need to use a certain type of fabric. Is that correct?
I think it comes from I think it's the meaning it's soft and fluffy. I use fleece, so
Okay.
it's very soft and
Okay.
the stuffing is very mushy and
Okay.
yeah.
So let's go backwards a bit. When did you first discover Etsy, and why did you decide to open your shop?
I discovered Etsy about a year and a half ago. A lot of my friends were on Etsy with different things, and I kind of thought about it. But there were some people who said that it's very overcrowded, and I wanted to find out for myself. So I ended up having a lot of fleece left over for a Christmas present that I was making my boyfriend's daughter. I was making her a hoodie,
Mhm.
and I had a lot of this bright lime green fleece left over, and I saw like a pattern for a little octopus, and I was like, I'm gonna try and make this. So I tried it, and I realized that I really love like sewing, so that's kind of how the whole thing started. I made a couple, I posted them on Facebook and I got some pretty good responses. So I decided to try Etsy, not really thinking of anything. I just put a couple up and was just trying testing the waters, but it seems to have grown into something a lot larger now.
Oh, that's great. So I'm curious. People told you Etsy was overcrowded, but that didn't really seem to stop you.
No, because I kinda like to find out everything for myself
Okay.
because the people that were telling me were in a different market. They were in,
Mhm.
like, the jewelry making market.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I figured it's a completely different type of thing, and it might be a little bit different. I did a little bit of research on Etsy to see what was already on there,
Mhm.
but I was like, "I'm just gonna go for it."
Okay. Yeah, and I know we've talked about that on the podcast. Yes, there are a lot of sellers on Etsy. There's no getting around it nowadays. Um, almost any, almost any, what's the word, craft that you want to sell, there probably is another shop selling that type of craft, but it's all in your product. That's where the difference comes in. That's the difference maker, is how you set your product and your shop apart from the others who are in the same niche. Would you say that that seems accurate in your case?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of people who make custom plushies, not necessarily of drawings, but there's a lot of people that do make like custom orders. It's very popular in like the Comic-Con type of sense, that
Oh,
type
right.
of crowd,
Mhm.
because they do a lot of drawings and they commission people to make them into plushies. But I figured that I might as well just give it a shot.
Wow. Yeah. Now, did you teach yourself to sew?
I did.
How?
It it took me a little bit of time to figure out how to learn to use a sewing machine because for the longest time I was terrified of one because I was like, I don't know how to do this. I can't thread this needle. I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But I sat down and I read the instructions to this brand new sewing machine that I bought. And I was like, all right, I think I can handle this.
Yeah.
So I eventually got it, but I've been sewing since I was younger. I actually, when I was a kid, I used to make little like shirts and stuff for the tops of my pencils.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've been hand sewing for the longest time, but I finally tackled a sewing machine.
Oh, wow.
So
That had to be, that's like really miniature sewing if you were sewing for a pencil.
yeah, it is.
Oh, man. Well, at least you were
There
creative. You were a creative thinker even back then.
Yeah, it was interesting. Those were some interesting days.
So your Etsy shop, did you open in 2015, or did you set up your account in 2015 and then open your shop later?
I set up my account in 2015, but I didn't really have everything all together until around January of this year.
Okay.
So it took me about a month.
Okay. So 2016. All right. And then did you start off immediately selling custom pieces, or did you have some that you put up in the in your shop just to give people an idea?
I did not start selling custom pieces originally. I had made up a couple of these little pink elephants that are still in my shop, and couple gray ones, and then the little octopi.
Mhm.
And then those actually worked out pretty well in the beginning. But I had gotten a request for something custom, and I kind of just rolled with it because it seemed to be what was popular in the market. And I really don't mind making custom pieces. It's actually quite fun now because
Yeah.
it gives me different things to do that I probably wouldn't think about myself.
Yeah. So when you get a custom request, do you tend to start offering that piece in your Etsy shop, or you make it for the buyer and that's it? It's a one of a kind.
I actually make them just for the buyer. Normally, since then it is more one of a kind,
Hmm.
and yeah, I've never actually had to list one of my custom pieces in my shop for anybody else.
Okay. And now that I think about it, while you were answering the question, I just thought, well, yeah, if a kid dreamed up a particular creature, it's not likely some other kid would want that. Well, I don't know, maybe, but yes, it would mean something to that one kid, and maybe other people might just be
Yeah.
curious. But yeah, okay, that makes sense. When you opened your Etsy shop, what was the, now you said you opened it, you were just going to try it out because first you started on Facebook. How, you got a good response on Facebook, so you opened your Etsy shop. What is the goal, and what's your long-term goal and the intention for Stitch and Stuffed?
Well, my long-term goal for it is to actually have it running as a full-time business for myself. And I have more ideas than just the custom plushies. I actually am working on putting together custom DIY kits for the children to put together themselves.
Oh,
Like,
fabulous.
yeah, like I was thinking the parents can send me the drawings, and I can take all of their pieces that I would normally use to make the plush myself
Mhm.
and have the holes all pre-punched and everything and make them into a very small kit so that you can make them into an ornament or something, but it'll give the kids a feeling that they can make them themselves.
Oh, that would be great. And I know some other sellers who I've talked to that would make items once they opened up to actually selling patterns for others to make, who wanted to make their own. Um, that was a good thing, because then they found out that opened up a whole new market for them, because most people who are on Etsy or shopping on Etsy have kind of a creative side, or are shopping for someone with a creative side. And so DIY products are also really popular. And when you're doing something like this, let's say it's a crafty kid, it would just make sense that a parent might say, here, make, you can actually make this creature that you dreamed up, or this person that you dreamed up.
Yeah, and I love that. That was basically my intention, was that maybe they might want to do it themselves and it would give them something to do, and it's like family bonding time, and it could be really fun.
Yeah. What do you think it's going to take to be able to, sorry, what do you think it's going to take to be able to create those DIY kits on your side? How much effort is that going to take, and what might you have to do differently? So, and I'm thinking more like figuring out how to write an instructional sheet for, that a child can follow. Maybe not a child, but at least an adult can walk a child through. But what are your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts are basically that it is going to take a little bit of time to make like each individual instructional sheet. But I think that since I'm going to have all of the little pre-punched holes where the child can just thread through them,
Mm.
it shouldn't be super difficult to write something up for each one. I kind of want to include little pictures too, so I might have to do like a mock-up of each one myself. But I
Mm.
figured that I already draw out the patterns and I cut them out for everyone that I make. So I figured that all I would have to do is just make smaller little versions of the patterns. And since everything's going to be all pre-cut,
Yeah.
it's just going to come in a nice little package with some stuffing and a little plastic needle, and it should be fairly simple. I just think it's going to take a little bit more of setting up like a production process.
Yeah. Yes.
Like, yeah, but it should be, I imagine, fairly simple to do.
Okay. I would love to hear how that goes, because I think that's a good angle to go to tackle.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I actually bought 10 pounds of stuffing, and I have a hole punch now so I can punch out the little holes. I have a ton of felt. I am ready.
That's great. Yes. Oh, definitely. Please keep me posted. And
I will.
good. And anyone else who wants to know about this, follow Nikki's shop. It's Stitch and Stuffed. This is the way, and especially if you're new to Etsy, this is one of the ways you can set yourself apart from other sellers is think outside the box, like Nikki is doing. Okay, so now I know you have a job outside of Etsy, and I've been waiting to get to this part, because for me, I'm fascinated. Now, you work in the automotive industry.
I do.
And you have a passion for cars. So let's talk about that. What do your days look like between work and Etsy?
Oh boy, they're a whirlwind. I have an hour drive to work every day. So I'm up at 7:30. I leave my house at 8. I work in Brantford. It's it's an hour from me over here. And it's all highway, so it's not horrible.
Okay.
But I get there and I work until 6 o'clock at night. So I'm home by 7, and then I'm normally working on orders that I have or cutting patterns for those orders until probably around 11. And it just repeats through the entire week.
Yeah. Now, so you have a crafty side, but you're also into cars. Some would think that the two just don't go, one person can't be like all into cars. And, you went to school for automotive, it's an
Yep.
automotive technician, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then you have this softer side where you're sewing and making these plushies. How did you, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this correctly, but I don't know if you get the question I'm trying to ask is how do you switch your mind from one to the other? Because one is very technical and very not soft like the plushies. So how do you switch between the two?
It's actually not super difficult. With the automotive side, there is a lot of technicality to it and making sure that all the parts are correct
Mm-hmm.
and everything. But it's kind of the same when I'm sewing. I basically, my best friend makes fun of me for this, but whenever I see anything, I'm always looking like any type of plush toy in a store or whatever. I'm picking it up and I'm looking at what pieces they used and seeing how they put everything together.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I see a drawing, I'm thinking about how which pieces would make that into the plush toy, into the shape that it needs to be. So I kind of do a technical aspect in both. So it's not much of a switch. I mean, sewing is much cleaner than working on cars,
Yeah.
but there's not much of a switch for me, at least.
Okay. I think it's so handy as a woman to understand the mechanics of a car. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, but I think like I know sometimes I go into the car shop and I feel so lost because I don't really know what they're talking about, and I try to understand but I don't get it. And sometimes I feel like if I had more of a better knowledge of that, you know I might get better service, or they might treat me differently if they knew I understood what they were talking about. But that's just in my head.
Actually, I feel the same way. That's one of the other reasons why I started learning about cars and why I went to school for it. Not only do I love it, but I kind of just wanted to know that if anything happens to my car and I need to take it somewhere where I can't do it myself, that I'm not getting like swindled by
Yeah.
anybody,
Yep.
because it happens a lot,
Yeah.
especially to women. It happens a lot and it's tough. So that's why I kind of just wanted to learn all about it. And I'm still learning because there's so much to actually know.
Yeah.
But I love it though. I love being able to fix things and put them back together and not really need to like rely on anybody else because I
Yeah.
can kind of just handle it.
Yeah. I'm so envious right now. Okay, so let's talk about how you come up with pricing for your animals. Well, not just the animals, but what you make. Have you reached a point yet where you've set up wholesale accounts so that you're able to buy in bulk at a reduced rate and lower your costs? Or are you do you still purchase at retail, and then does that factor into the pricing for the products that you make?
I do still purchase at retail for right now. I have like a wholesale like ID number, so I can purchase wholesale,
Yeah.
but I haven't found a wholesaler that I liked yet.
Okay.
So I'm still kind of on the hunt for one.
Yeah. And I'm glad I brought this up because it's hard sometimes to find wholesalers that one are true wholesalers. I think, at least in my experience, if you just search online for a wholesaler, a lot of what you find are middlemen. They're not true wholesalers. And so you're still paying probably more than you should, maybe less than retail, but not maybe not truly wholesale prices. And and now that I think about it as I'm talking, I don't really yet know what the solution is other than going to wholesale vendor shows. Are you familiar with those where you can go to these wholesale vendor shows and make contact with wholesalers?
I have heard about those.
Yeah.
I haven't been to one yet, but that's definitely something that I have heard about. And there was like a list online, I forgot where I found it, of actual wholesalers for different categories, but I
Mm,
couldn't really find a good one for like the fleece that I use.
yeah. Yeah, I can imagine. And then it seems like that would be something that you probably would need to see in person or touch and decide if that
Yeah,
was the
because
right one for you.
yeah, there's so many different types of fleece that it's definitely something I need to like touch and look at the quality of it and make
Mhm.
sure that it's not just gonna fall apart.
Yeah. So, in addition to the cost of your raw materials, what else do you take into consideration when you're coming up with the final price tag on your products?
Mostly it's time because a lot of the stuff I make is kind of time consuming.
Mhm.
So most of it is just basically like, as we'd say in the automotive industry, labor time. So, yeah, most of it's just my time and how long it'll take me to actually make it. Because my cost for materials really isn't that bad. It's just basically how much time it'll take me to put everything together and make a pattern. And that's basically it, though.
Okay.
It's mostly just time.
Okay. Now, let's talk about what you've done in the past year. Initially, when you first started selling, to promote your shop and your products, and how that has evolved over the year as you've learned more about selling on Etsy.
Well, when I first started, I spent a lot of time in the Etsy forums, and I posted a little bit in like the promo section, which is not helpful. So, like,
Why, oh, wait, sorry. Before you move on, Nikki, why do you think that wasn't helpful?
only because there's so many people that are promoting. It's more of like the whole section is people promoting. It's not really people looking to buy.
Yes.
That's what I've run into.
Thank you. And you bring up a good point is and sorry, I'll get back to you and what you've learned, but one of the issues that, we've talked about on the podcast with the promotion forums is sometimes, most times, more often than not, other Etsy sellers are not your target market. And so when you're promoting in those forums or on those platforms, you're promoting to people that aren't the people who are going to buy. And like you said, everyone is promoting their own items, but no one is really there to shop. If you think about it, you're not there looking, and most other people aren't. So we've said this before on the podcast, you would be better off using your time in some other way as far as trying to get the word out about your Etsy shop. Sorry. Okay, go on.
No, I completely agree with you. And that was definitely something that I learned because I wasn't super sure at first what it was all about. I mean, it says promos, so you would think that, but it just didn't work out that way, which is good. I still love the Etsy forums and I learned different ways of promoting. I love Instagram. It's a wonderful tool for promotion. And I found that if you engage with like people who you believe are your target market,
Mhm.
it's really helpful. Even if you're just liking their pictures or you leave a little comment, they do look into like who likes
Ooh,
their stuff and
yeah,
who's engaging with them.
yeah,
So it seems to be really helpful.
yes. And it's so true that engaging with people, and I know I say this and I sound partial to Instagram, but I think I have to confess or admit I am partial to Instagram only because, like you say, it's easier to engage with people there. And when I see names, like if somebody likes a picture of mine, if it's an account I haven't seen before, I will go and check them out. I'll follow people. I'll see what they're doing. I'll look at their accounts and, I'll look at the pictures that they post and all whatnot. And Instagram just makes it easy to do that. So I really advocate Instagram for Etsy sellers.
It is. It's such a wonderful platform to use.
Yeah. And easy too. And
It is.
the format of it just really lends itself to Etsy sellers. You make something, you take a picture, put it on Instagram and say something. And then, and then of course there's the whole hashtag thing. I haven't quite mastered Instagram, but I do know that hashtags are crucial.
They are. They're very important.
Have you
Yeah, I
have you
haven't mastered
figured out
it
the
myself.
whole hashtag thing on Instagram?
I haven't figured out like all of it, but I also use I use Marmalade for my Etsy tags.
Mhm.
So I kind of have been using a little bit of my Etsy tags kind of with my Instagram hashtags, just trying to see how that'll work.
Okay. Now you're also on Facebook. That's where you first debuted your creations. Do you still use Facebook quite a lot, and how so?
I do. I have a Facebook page. It's not as up to date as my Instagram pages, but
Mhm.
I keep trying to share my Instagram stuff onto Facebook to try and get it a little more active. But
Yeah.
I use the Facebook promotional listings for one of my posts, and it seems to be doing pretty well. It's gotten some really good engagement. I'm not
Oh,
sure
good.
if there's any sales from it yet, but
Mhm.
it's gotten some pretty good engagement. There's a couple comments and a bunch of people have shared it. So I think that that's kind of a win.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. And did it cost you a lot to do that?
I did $1 a day for 30 days, and the 30 days isn't up yet. So it'll probably be like right around $30. So it's not that bad.
That's not bad at all. And that's one of the things I like about the Facebook advertising is um there you can start as low as you want to if you're just testing the waters and see, and regardless of how low you start, you still get a good gauge on how effective the the um the advertising is going to be, so you'll know whether it's worth spending more on or not.
Absolutely. And it's taken a couple different tries of different ads to see what really seems to resonate with people. But this one seems to be doing pretty well.
Oh, good. Now, do you have any plans to start a website or a blog?
I do. I wish I had a little bit more time,
Of
but I
course.
really wanted, I know, I wanted to set up like a standalone website, especially for all of the custom kids drawings, because I feel like that could be something where if I could figure out how to put in like a form where they can just send me the files through there, it
Mhm.
might be a little bit better. Eventually, I
Mm.
want to. It's just going to take some time.
Yeah, that it will. How about blogging? Um, separate from what you want to do as far as e-commerce and taking orders. Do you think blogging is something you have an interest in and that it might be of use to you to help grow your brand and just into your introduce people rather to your processes and who you are and your brand?
I do. I would love to start a blog. I think that I would love to write about like yeah, everything that I do, and then I would want to put up different patterns like for free and different helpful hints and everything. I'm actually trying to start like a small workshop in my town
Oh,
for all of the town people just to come in and learn how to like cut a pattern and about seam allowances, and they can make their own little plush toy and take it home with them at the end of the night. And so I'm working on that
oh
because I like to
wow.
teach people things.
Yeah. That would be great. Okay, that's something else I want to follow. I want us to follow up on as you go along. I think in a year you're just going to, do just too many things. So I need to have you back. So let's schedule that later.
Yeah, that would be great.
Now, one thing I want to ask is because I know new sellers or somebody who's new or just starting off might be listening to this, as someone who is still like just rounding up your first year of selling on Etsy, what are you struggling with the most right now?
I think right now it's good product photography.
Okay.
I am learning to build like a little light box. I just bought some poster board. And I'm trying to figure out exactly what I think would work because I'm not really sure if just the white background would really work for my product. I kind of want more fun, like actiony type of shots.
Hmm.
So I'm trying to figure out which type of photography would work and how to take that type of photography.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of my hardest point right now because I feel like I could really like basically upgrade how my shop looks if I just had some better product photography.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes. And that's crucial. We know that that will help to push your sales up is the photography. What
Yeah.
resources would you find most helpful?
Um, I love your podcast
Oh,
first.
thank you.
And You're welcome. And I love using Marmalade. They've gotten some new features on there, and they also have a podcast, Etsy
Hmm.
Jam, and
Hmm.
it's really good. And their site is just wonderful. It's been so helpful trying to find keywords and tags and everything, and I use it a lot. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they do good work and they've put out a good product. So, yes, that's good. Um, when you get an idea for a new product, typically how long does it take from inception to actually creating it and then having it ready for sale?
It depends on exactly what I'm thinking of making. But normally if I have an idea in my head, I almost immediately, or at least within a couple hours, have to at least try to make it because otherwise it'll drive me absolutely nuts. Like I have to make it like
Yeah.
right away. So, but as for getting it ready up for sale, it depends on if I really love it or not.
Yeah.
if if I love it and I think that it'll do well, then I normally will try and take the best pictures that I can of it, and I'll first post it on Facebook just to kind of gauge if anybody's interested. I'll post it on my personal Facebook and then share it to my business Facebook.
Okay.
And I'll try and see, but if it does pretty well, then I'll decide to post it on Etsy.
Okay. Okay. Process in place. Is there something about selling on Etsy that um that you learned the hard way?
Yes, there is actually. I learned that you should definitely have your shipping rates either
Oh,
calculated by Etsy, or you should just make sure that you know how much it is to ship internationally. Because I
yeah.
had an issue once where a person had bought something from me and they were in another country and the shipping was just horribly under what it should be. So I just kind of ate it and just went with it. And they were happy and it was fine, but I adjusted everything now.
Yes. I think shipping is huge. Learning how to do shipping correctly and then in particular international shipping. And like you, I learned how to do international shipping the hard way. I think I ate the cost on two products before I figured out, okay, you need to weigh it. Then you need to weigh everything that's going, that it's going, whatever you're sending is going in, and then, have the system calculate it. Don't guess at what you think it's going to cost to send something halfway around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely taking some time to figure all of that out. I do a lot of shipping on in my day-to-day job too.
Oh yeah.
And it's helped a lot because I'm normally making labels and I kind of can figure out what the normal pricing is now,
Hmm.
but it's definitely been a challenge. That was something that I learned.
Okay. Now, do you use the integrated Etsy shipping tool or do you use an outside shipping management system?
I actually kind of use a combination of the Etsy tool, and then I also just go to the post office sometimes. It depends on if I have enough time to get to a printer to
Hmm.
actually print a shipping label.
Hmm.
And if not, then I'll just go to the post office and write the address on the package and just send it that way.
Okay.
Um, Printing the labels is much easier sometimes, and I just bought a new printer because my printer had died, so it didn't work out well.
Yeah. Yeah. The things we do for our businesses.
Yes.
Is there one thing about selling on Etsy that you really like? And is there something that perhaps a feature that currently doesn't exist, but you would like to see it someday?
I think just Etsy in general is something that is such a wonderful place because it's the people who go on it are definitely like looking for something that's handmade, and it's just such a wonderful marketplace in general. Like all of it is just pretty great. Um, I think that I don't think I've actually thought of anything that I would like to see on there. I'm kind of just rolling with it right now,
Yeah.
just seeing how everything goes.
Yeah. Well, the folks at Etsy would be happy to hear that. They're like, okay, we're doing good. We can kick back
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
So, Nikki, one thing I would like you to talk to someone about is just what you think it would take for that person who is listening and wants to start selling on Etsy, but has some hangups. What would you say to that person right now who knows they want to sell on Etsy, has a product in mind that they want to sell on Etsy, but just hasn't pulled the trigger?
I would say do it. It's such an adventure. It's so new and fun, and you may have to tweak your products a little, or you may have to tweak your listings. It's definitely a learning curve,
Mhm.
but I would say do it. Like, there's almost nothing that you can lose. If your product doesn't work, then and you can make adjustments to it, or you can make a whole other product.
Mhm.
There's no limit to how many times you can try to be on Etsy and fail. You might not fail at all. You might totally kill it.
Yeah.
So you should just take the leap. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're
Have you
welcome.
ever used the Etsy seller handbook?
Um, I think in the beginning I used it a little bit, but not really. It's something that I've always wanted to look into. I
Mhm.
just am always like super busy.
Yeah. And I think that's the story with a lot of sellers. Yeah, the seller handbook is there. And for anyone who doesn't know, Etsy has what they call the Etsy seller handbook. And it really is what's the word? A collection of instructional blog posts that Etsy has put out. But they're specifically, what's the word? Intended to teach you tips and techniques for selling successfully on Etsy. Um, it's hugely helpful. And so if you haven't checked it out, take some time to. It can be intimidating because Nikki, you probably know there's so much information in there. And so
There is.
picking where you want to start might be your hardest decision, but when you do, the information is there.
Yeah, it's pretty wonderful of an idea, and I think
Mhm.
I've looked through it a couple times just for specific
Mhm.
research,
Mhm.
but I'd like to actually take the time to kinda go through it.
Yeah. Yeah, would be nice if we had that time, right?
I know.
What's something you're doing now that you think is working really well for you?
I think that right now, I'm just trying to post more on social media to try and really have like a normal scheduled type of posting because I'm kind of sporadic, but I'm trying to learn to post more scheduled and see if that like takes a better turn, I suppose.
Right. Yeah.
It's kind of the way to say that. But that's something I'm working on right now. It seems to be working pretty well. But it's a little bit difficult to try and get everything scheduled and up to date.
Yeah. Do you use any particular social media scheduling tools or are you doing it all manually?
I think I'm just doing it manually for right now.
Okay.
I heard about the tool, the if this then that is it
Yeah.
that it?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I've heard about that one. I haven't tried it yet though. It's definitely something I am going to try to look into. I
Okay.
just haven't at the moment.
Okay. And that's a good one to start off with because it's free. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, free is always good, especially when you're just starting. I don't believe you should spend way too much money trying
Exactly.
things out until you have a formula that works. And for anyone who doesn't know, if this then that or IFTTT basically is a website where you go and you create recipes to say if something like if I post a product on Etsy, then post it on Instagram or post it on Facebook. So you're telling it what to do when you when you take a specific action, and then it automates that process for you. And of course, you link up the accounts or whatever you want it to do for you. And it's not just for social media. You can use it to control your email box too. Like if I get an email from this domain, put it in the junk folder or trash it, or, so that you thin out your email and things like that. So go check it out. I'll put a link to that as well. So anyone who wants to try that out can do that. Now, Nikki, I know you're going to be attending Craftcation in 2017 in April, right?
I am. I'm so excited.
Yes. What are you most looking forward to? Well, have you been before, first of all?
No, I've also never been on a plane. So
what?
Yeah.
Okay, you'll be fine. Planes are fun.
Yeah.
What are you most looking forward to at Craftcation?
Oh, I'm looking forward to it's going to be a huge adventure because I'm going by myself. I've never been on a plane, and I'm completely all the way across the other side of the country.
Yes.
But I want to attend as many workshops as I possibly can because I've never been to anything like this.
Yeah.
So this is a whole new experience for me. I'm just super excited about the entire thing.
Oh, good, good. I'm excited to hear that you'll be there. For anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, I talked with Nicole, and she runs Craftcation. She organizes the whole event, and we did a whole podcast about that and conferences. If you want to learn more, that was episode 156 of the podcast. And then you can learn more about it. It's in April of 2017. Oh, I forget the exact dates, but all the information is there. So Nikki will be there. I will be there. Hopefully we'll get to see you there too. Now, Nikki, do you have an Etsy shop shout out?
I do.
Yay!
I know, I'm so excited. My best friend just started a shop. She creates jewelry and keychains and hand stamped things. Her shop is called Country Craftin, like Craftin Corner.
Okay. Country Craftin Corner. And what's her name?
Amber. Her name is Amber.
Okay. So I will put a link to Amber's Etsy shop. It's Country Craftin Corner. Please go check it out and let her know Nikki sent you. Thank you for sharing that, Nikki.
Yeah.
Now, what's the best way people can reach you if they want to get in touch with you?
Either through Etsy Conversations. I have the Etsy app on my phone, so it just notifies me when anyone convos me.
Yeah.
Or if Facebook, it pretty much anywhere. I just answer it, but Etsy Conversations is good.
Okay. All right. Do you love that app?
I do. It's the best thing ever.
Yes. Yeah, I know. I think so too. It makes it so convenient to stay in touch with people. Well, especially when, with your customers first and foremost. So I will have
wonderful.
Yeah, I know. I like it. And when they first came out with it, I don't know when it first came out, but I know when I first discovered it, initially I just downloaded it and I didn't really pay much attention to it till I heard the first sale come through. And then I was like, okay, what is this? And how do I make this keep happening?
Me too.
So I will have links to Nikki's Etsy shop and also links to her social media accounts. So you can go check out what she's doing. If you're a new seller and you're struggling, I think Nikki would be a great person to get in touch with because she's figuring things out. And she'll tell you it's not exactly easy, but it's doable. Do you agree, Nikki? I'm putting words in your mouth, but
No. I completely agree. And yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'm totally open to help. I love answering people's questions and helping, and anything that I've learned, I'd love to share with anybody. So yeah, totally get in contact with me.
All right. Thank you. And Nikki, thank you so much for coming and sharing about what you're doing on Etsy and how you're doing it. I think this will be helpful, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Thank you for having me. I hope to see you in April.
I'll see you in April. And I will see you. Oh, no. Well, I will be back next week with another episode of the podcast.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.